Good afternoon. It's wonderful to have you with us. Let me do quick introductions. Today we are talking about all things education and counseling. And so we are going to be talking about our Millicent Atkins School of Education. Yep. And so joining us today is our fearless leader, Dean Anna Schwan is with us. Thank you, Anna, for being here.
Yes, thank you.
We also have Dr. Tanya Brown. And Tanya, you are in counselor education, I understand.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being
Thanks
with us
for
today,
having
too.
me.
And then we're so fortunate to have a student. And so we have Renea Taylor with us.
Yes.
And Renea was an undergraduate with us, but I understand you're working on your master's
Yep.
degree now, and it's special education.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Thank you for being with us
Of
today,
course.
too.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to jump into questions, but you feel free to jump in and we will talk about education, which is, I have to just start by saying, near and dear to my heart, because my background is also education, and that is the discipline I came up through as well in higher education. So Dean Schwan, tell us a little bit about the Millicent Atkins School of Education. I'm really wanting you to tell us about the name attached to your school. But tell us about your overall school, the programs, your enrollment, your student body. Just talk to us about the school.
Absolutely. Well, our school is the best. And the namesake Millicent Atkins comes from a donor, and in fact, it's the largest single gift that Northern has received. It was $12.5 million. And she divided it amongst three places: a church in Northeast South Dakota, and in the University of Minnesota, and then to Northern. And so what we've done is we've given our school her name, and she continues to inspire. She was a teacher for many years in South Dakota, a primary teacher, and so we've utilized her gift now for a major scholarship program, and we continue to learn from her and be inspired by her. And our students, oh yes, we have the best students. We have the best students. We have three departments in the School of Education. We have teacher education, counseling, psychology, and then sports sciences. So we come together as professionals. It seems it's always an interesting conversation. How did they all end up in the School of Education? But really, all of our majors and our certificates and all of our programs lead to serving others, and that's truly the heart of what our students and faculty want to do when they grow up, is be helpful to others and help others see their potential. Currently we serve right over 700 students in our undergraduate and graduate programs online. We have a handful of certificates. We have over 20 programs, undergraduate and graduate, in our school. Elementary education is the largest program on campus. And our students are incredible. They're involved in so many things. Renea was the homecoming queen. Yeah. They represent us so well, and our faculty are exceptional. They all come from a place of wanting to help our students succeed. They serve on countless committees. They're engaged in research, and they're the best in the classroom, simply the best.
Tell me again how big you said, how many students you said.
We serve over 700 students at this time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I did not have that number in my head.
I looked it up this morning, so it's 727 right now, actually.
That is great. Yeah. And then tell me again the number of faculty.
We have 24 of us, faculty and staff, that are housed in the School of Education. Okay. So that includes our staff, and then also we have an academic advisor who lives in the School of Ed also. So there are 24 of us, and we're currently searching for a psychology professor, and then that position will round us out to be complete.
Wonderful. That's great. That's very impressive. So I want to talk a little bit about history. Historically, education was the very first major, the first program offered by Northern, and that goes back to 1901. So just tell us, because you kind of own that history, tell us a little bit about the history of Northern.
Yes, so Northern opened in 1901, and there was two requirements. You had to be 14, and you wanted to teach. And you were in, and you belonged here. And I think we continue to carry that philosophy that every student matters, and if you want to be here, we have a place for you, and you are important. And so it changed a little bit over time. In 1938, it was changed, the legislature changed it to Northern State Teachers College. There was even a model school on campus for the teacher candidates to practice teaching. It was grades 1 through 4. And so it's just kind of continued that legacy, and so we're really building on that. We want to be the education school in the region and the state.
Great. And then I want to bring us all the way to modern day. Tell us about some of the newest programs that you've launched. So kind of more maybe contemporary. What are some of the new things you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the ones we just had passed, which is kind of interesting, it's kind of a remake on one of the older programs. So the Gerber building that we're in that just had the remodel used to be the industrial tech building. And so we had an industrial tech major for years. So if you wanted to be a shop teacher, that's where you would come to do that. Well, it kind of went away, and so now we've brought it back, and we've expanded. So instead of just being able to learn how to be a shop teacher, it covers all of the CTE areas in the state. So that's one of our big accomplishments lately, and we're working with Lake Area Tech in a partnership where they can provide the content and we can provide the education, and we can start to train those teachers. There's no other program like it in the state and in the region, honestly, where you can go get a great education on how to be a CTE teacher. We just finished up with an associate degree in education that is a complete pipeline to any teacher ed program. We revisited the master's degree in sports science now we have 4 specializations for students in the master's program. So really any area that you want to explore, we have a path for you. We are revitalizing the master's in instructional leadership in e-learning, so we'll have some different emphases and some different avenues there. In physical education, we now have another pathway. So if you don't want to be a PE teacher, maybe you want to work with youth sport, and so we've got a pathway for that also. So there's some things that we've been working on.
So one of the very first things that hit me when I came as interim president in June was your program in CTE was before the Board of Regents in July. I think I'd been here 2 weeks, and I headed to that July Board of Regents meeting, and it got approved. And I actually had a lot of questions when I was there about it. And of course, I'm brand new, and I really don't know that much about it. But I am in historically, I was in teacher ed, so it wasn't too much of a stretch. But what I wanted to tell you is how many accolades you and Northern got for doing this collaborative program with Lake Area Tech. And I just really think it's very creative, and it's also really, it's really important, I think, in South Dakota that we try to stretch resources as much as we can. And quite honestly, Northern probably wasn't in a position to do all of the technical skill development that it required, but you certainly could do all of the teacher ed. And they, on the flip side, were just the opposite. They had the technical skill development, but they would not have teacher ed. So bringing those two together was really good. Was that hard to get done?
No, not at all. The president, Tiffany Sanderson, and I have known each other for years. I grew up with her husband. So it's, it's paperwork, and it's getting together. And we sat for a few hours and went program by program to figure out how their programs align with what's required by the DOE for certification, and figured out, like, we've got a huge chunk of content that we can use in a lot of different endorsement areas.
Yeah, that's really, it was just a great program. So, all right, and then one last, and I am going to move on, but how about your thoughts about the future? Do you have anything in the pipeline at this point in time?
Yes, the future. So my vision for the future for our School of Ed is I want people to come here on purpose, and I want, when you think of education or counseling or psychology or human performance, I'm going to Northern. Where else would I go? That's what I see for us in the future. And like you talked about expanding resources, I want everybody in South Dakota and in our region to be able to have access to an education. So I want our students who live in Timber Lake to be able to join a class through Zoom or HighFlex and be able to obtain an education that way. So we've done a lot with apprenticeships and making our programs accessible. And so I see a lot more of that in the future, and expanding partnerships and just really giving our education to anybody who wants it, for sure.
Great.
Yeah, and other programs, we're working on a Bachelor of Science in Education and Early Childhood Education, also a major need and kind of a shortage there, so we're working on that. Psychology plans to go online, and so we have counseling education is completely HighFlex and available remote, so that was a huge accomplishment a few years ago. So we're seeing more and more motivation for students to look at programs that they don't necessarily have to be right here all the time.
Right, yeah. Great, good. All right, Dr. Brown, I'm going to focus on you for a little bit if I can shift over.
Sure.
And we've already established that you represent counseling, so I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about the specific program. And I mean, just kind of tell us about counselor education, how you prepare future counselors.
Sure. I might be a little biased, but like Dean Schwan says, I think we have one of the best counseling program around. And even as I still consider myself a new faculty going into my second year. But comparing it to other other programs, I would say we have one of the best ones. So we have a master's program that has 2 specialization, clinical mental health and school counseling track. And so we've garnered a lot of students. I know since I've been here, I hear stories how small the cohort was, and my first year coming in, we had like 24 incoming students, and so which was apparently very huge. And that has continued in my second year here. I think we had 21 coming in, and so it's been quite the growth for counselors and preparing counselors for the future. We are a KCREB accredited program, which makes us stand out among the counseling folks. As a matter of fact, we have our on-site, well, it's a virtual site visit next week by KCREB. So if you all see us looking a bit frazzled, we're just trying to dot our I's and cross our T's. And so I think when Dean Schwan just spoke about high flex. So before coming to Northern, I've had experience teaching in person and I've had experience teaching online. So when I heard about high flex, I was like, oh my goodness, how does one do that? But I have to say that has been one of the most rewarding experience I've had, to be able to do that modality and to make it work. So many of our students are not in Aberdeen, are not in South Dakota, and to be able to open that opportunity for them, where I have one student from Ohio, there's one in Washington as well. And so to be able to open this modality and see it work, to be able to create that atmosphere where the students on Zoom are not feeling left out with the students in person. Some classes do have an asynchronous component as well, so they're able to choose to do it completely asynchronously as well. And so I think those are some of the things in preparing counselors for the future, it's a 60 credit program, so they have 42 hours of main classes that they'll have to take, and then there are 9 hours of practicum and internship where we offer those skill classes and those experiential classes. It's really intense training because, if you go to a counselor, you want the best. And so I feel like we here at Northern are producing the best. And so I think that's some of the snapshots of what our program offer.
That's great. And I want to go back to 2 things.
Yeah.
So high flex.
Yes.
So when I came, I kind of had the same,
Yeah.
I was very familiar with face-to-face,
Yes.
very familiar with online. But this high flex,
Yes.
what was it? And I do have to say, having spent time in the Board of Regents system in South Dakota, really Northern is the only one that has taken high flex on. It really is, truly.
Yes.
I think others might say they do it a little bit. Not at all like Northern is doing
Not
it.
the Northern
And one of the
experience.
things, I have to just jump in, anybody who teaches high flex at Northern has to be trained and
Yes.
certified. So
Which
it's
is
a
great.
lot of work.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, but it means that you have really qualified teachers and
Yes.
faculty in front of the students, and just to make sure for our viewers that they understand, it truly is an opportunity for in one class a student to be
Yes.
sitting in the classroom,
Yes.
taking it old-fashioned face-to-face. They can be online,
Yes.
or they can be some combination of the
both.
2. So
Yes.
you might be able to do asynchronous, meaning they're really online, but
Line.
you're not even seeing them.
No, they are not in the classroom.
Right.
So, for example, my class yesterday, for my first years, I have 17 students. And for class yesterday, I had like maybe 4 in person and the balance online. For my Thursday class, that's an asynchronous class. So it usually runs I usually have 6 in person, 6 online, and then 4 will take it asynchronously.
Wow.
So they have the full experience. Those who take it asynchronously will watch the video of those of us who are online and in person, in person and on Zoom. And then the questions or the feedback or the information is geared towards them, so they're still feeling like they're included, and has to do a video to tell us their thoughts and participate in the class.
Right.
So
That's
yeah.
really fascinating.
is.
And one other question I want you to explain for a moment is accreditation.
Yes.
Because in higher ed, we say the word and everybody knows what it is, right?
Yeah.
But when you get out in the public, people often don't understand accreditation.
Yeah.
Can you tell our public
Sure.
what accreditation is?
So KCREB and most educators and counselor educators, I've heard it, we were just at a conference and they reference it as K-crap, just because, but it's a council for accreditation of counseling and related educational field. And what that is, they're the ones who set up the the core requirements. They're the ones who dictate what it takes to be trained as a counselor. So they set the curriculum, they set the standards, they set all the rules and regulations, if you will, to use a layman term. And so we have to go by. So for example, the required core classes, or counselors have to be trained in ethics. They have to have group experience. They have to have all the internship practicum. They have to have at least 40 hours of practicum. They have to have their 300. And so they are the ones who set the standards. Right. It's the foundation is the American Counseling Association Code of Ethics, which is the foundation of what we do. And so KCREP, or Accreditation Board, is the one that's making sure that we're training counselors as how they should be trained.
Super. Thank you for that. I want to jump forward and talk a little bit about job demand, because you just mentioned that you're a growing major, which is wonderful.
Yes.
But I would imagine that might be tied to job demand.
Yes.
So tell us, what is it like for students when they graduate in terms of finding work?
It's a very good prospect, actually. Going back to our most recent graduated cohort, 100% got the jobs in the field, whether it was school counseling or clinical mental health. So when we look at the job prospects out there, sad to say, there's always a need for our profession, especially given the climate of our world today. There's so many kids coming up, adults coming up with so many trauma-related issues that we're seeing more and more of a need for counseling. So where clinical mental health is concerned, there is a high prospect, or counselors are getting jobs in local agencies, in private practice, in substance abuse agencies. Rehabilitation counseling is also growing. Our school counselors, the demand for school counselors are more, but interestingly enough, when we look at a cohort, and this is all across board with all counselor education programs, they're usually more clinical mental health than school counselors. Our current cohort have 2 school counselors. Last year we had 6. And so the need for school counselors are, however, just as demanded, especially in the more rural areas or the underrepresented areas. This is where the need. So we're finding that our graduates or anyone in counseling is not having that much of a hard time being placed or finding a job after graduation, because the need is there.
Yeah, very much so. And then finally, I'm going to ask you one more question, and that's just about, can you talk a little bit, this is probably pushing you outside of your comfort zone a little, but can you talk about other programs within either your department or actually the school?
No.
So just what else can you tell us kind of as a faculty member within the school?
Yes, well, I'm learning, because as a newer faculty, so as Dean Schwan said, it's a interesting combination. So teacher education, what I know about teacher education is they just was ranked #1 in the state of South Dakota. So I would brag to say they're the best.
For the 3rd year.
But, we don't mean to blow our own horn, but that tells us, and funny enough, my first year mentor last year, Dr. Wold, I heard a lot about the program from her, being the special education faculty there, so I know they're doing good things. I had no idea about sports management before I got here. And I'm like, I was talking to Sung the other day, and I said, don't you have to be like an athlete to teach sport? And he's like, no, do I look like an athlete? And so he was educating us on what it is. But I was invited earlier this year to be a 3rd chair on 2 of their capstone presentation. And because of that, I really got a front row seat, I felt like, into what they do and what their students do. So that for me was pretty a good experience as I continue to learn. And then psychology, of course, is tied to us. It's like the foundation. A lot of our psychology students have interest in our counseling program, and so that's like our feeder base there. And it keeps me in touch with the undergrads, because we only teach graduate students, so sometimes we can feel a little detached. So when I get to speak in those classes, it's like, we're back to the foundation. So that's what I know so far about her. It's a great department.
How big roughly is the psychology major at Northern?
Oh,
Not a good question.
Didn't write that down, President Nichols.
That's okay. We'll come back to that.
Psychology is usually one of the largest majors at Northern.
That's what I was thinking.
It kind of ebbs and flows. It's sort of, I think what we're focusing on now, and not just with psychology, is making sure that our students and prospective students understand what kinds of skills they'll possess when they're finished with a degree. So for example, with psychology, because that's a term that's been around forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, what am I going to be able to do?
Yeah.
And what kind of a person will I be able to help with a psychology degree?
Right.
So we're looking ahead at how can we best represent what our majors can actually do for a student, like sports administration. Well, what do I do with that? What does that look like? So psychology is one of them that we're trying to look ahead and especially going online, if we can broaden that and help students see like what they could do with that kind of a program.
Yeah.
I think with many of our undergraduate majors, we need to be even maybe better at that, is really help them see career paths after they graduate.
Yeah.
So. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, Renee, I'm going to come to you now. Thank you for being with us. It's always a highlight to have students with us, so thanks so much. So I'm just going to start by asking you to tell us about you. Tell us about your background, where you're from, and a little bit about your undergraduate, too, because I know you've done a lot at Northern.
Yes. Okay, so I'm from a small town on the northeast side of Washington. Okay. It's a very, very small town. We just have a post office. It's called Malott. I came to Northern and I got a bachelor's of science and education. So I double majored in special education and elementary education. I obtained that last May. Good. And now I'm in my master's program for special education.
Very
and
good.
I'm also a track athlete here. I am also the president of Council for Exceptional Children. I'm involved in the School of Education clubs and the STEM outreach program. And like you said, I'm also the homecoming queen here at Northern too.
Just crowned, not very long ago.
Right.
Exactly. I have to give this little side story. My husband was here. My husband grew up in Washington, and he was here for homecoming, and he was so excited to meet you. He just felt bonded to you from the moment.
Absolutely.
So. Wonderful. So you're a graduate student in special ed, as you just said. So tell us a little bit about that program, and then tell us what you hope to do with it when you complete.
Okay, so I am in the special education master's program, and I'm taking it all online, and I'm loving it so far. I don't think that will change. I have to do practicum hours, so that kind of gets me out into the community. I'm kind of immersing myself in a lot of different disability categories and kind of focusing in and honing my skills. I mean, sadly, I wish I could stay in South Dakota, but I am going to take my skills and my knowledge back home and kind of put that to use there, get a job in special education, hopefully, and just kind of advocate for my students back home.
And projected graduation date for you is?
May.
In May, so you'll be finishing.
Yep.
And is your eligibility over this year?
Yep.
Okay.
It's my last year,
you've
too.
done all, yeah, okay, very good. So tell us a little bit about just favorite parts of Northern, favorite parts of your program. What have you really enjoyed here?
Oh, that's a really hard question because it's kind of hard to kind of hone in.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about Northern is just the tight-knit community that comes along with it. I like walking down the hallway and knowing who I'm walking past, whether that's faculty, professors, students. I don't know. I just think it's fun because we're small, but we're mighty. Yeah. I feel like I'm getting a very, very good education, but I'm also in a small community where I know they're gonna have my back and I'm gonna have theirs, and I can go up to my professor and, you know what, hey, I'm struggling in my student teaching. Can you help me? Can you walk me through this? And I know they're gonna be there, and so I think that's just my favorite part about Northern as a whole.
Has it been difficult to be a student athlete and to, be a serious student and keep progressing through your major? Has that been difficult? Or?
Honestly, no.
It hasn't?
Absolutely not. I think at Northern especially, you get the best of both worlds. Yeah. You have faculty that's going to, be there for you academically and athletically, and then vice versa. Your coaches are there for you athletically and academically. At Northern, you truly get to be a student athlete. You get to excel at both without having to, put one aside or, skip over a few things. I feel like I've gotten to be fully immersed in athletics and then also fully immersed in my program as well.
Very good. And one last question. What's it like to make the jump from being an undergraduate student to being a graduate student? How, if you were telling another student about that, how would you describe that change?
Yeah, I think it's honestly just kind of taking those like skills that you've already kind of, like done and learned and all that knowledge you've taken, that base knowledge, and then just honing in on it. Like I think about special education, there's 13 disability categories. Now in my master's program, rather than learning about the overview and kind of like the small little things you can do here and there, you get to kind of like dive into those categories and the laws of special education and stuff like that. Right now I'm taking a course with emotional and disorders and kind of getting to like dive into that and how can I fully support a student with this disability. Rather than kind of getting an overview, I get to just really get in and hone those skills.
Real depth, that's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
Well done. Good. Thank you.
Of course.
Anna, I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to ask you kind of a deanly question, and that is, as the chief leader of the school, I'm going to ask you if you could talk in a little bit more detail about your vision for the School of Education. So, if you can look into your crystal ball, how do you see the future unfolding, and what are some goals or maybe initiatives that you see yourself putting in place so that you can really be a progressive School of Education?
Oh, yes. I want us to matter. I want us to stand out, not only because of what we do, but because of how we do it. We've got some things working now that, like the apprenticeship program and the high flex counseling, and I want us to keep working forward and establishing that relevance in today. I don't ever want us to stop changing. We had a School of Ed curriculum meeting yesterday, and every meeting we have, there's massive amounts of documents, and our advisor was like, can we please just stop with the changes? And we were kind of laughing and thinking, the minute we stop, then we become irrelevant. And my vision is to keep investing in our future, and I want us to never stop being curious about what we need to do next and how we can be better and how we can serve our students better. And so I just want us to keep growing. I want there to be more people interested in becoming teachers and becoming counselors. Some of that is beyond our control, but I want us to be there for them. When they do decide that's what they want, then I want to be there for them, and I want us to be their people, and I want to matter in the future.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. I know you've been working on this incredible Atkins scholarship because you and I have talked about it several times, and it is for students who are elementary or early childhood education, I believe, in those majors. So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned the gift that came in. You've now had a year or two, I think, to really start, maybe it's been more than that, a few years to really start kind of shaping what that looks like. Tell us what you have in store for that.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the 1901. We established it as the 1901 just to help with the connection of our roots and where we started. We started as education, and that's where we will continue to go. And so the 1901 scholarship is a wonderful gift because it ensures that everybody receives something. So we're about to launch for the next fall a tiered system that everybody receives at least 1901 a year, but then there's some higher tier amounts for our high achievers with awards up to like $5,500 a year. So that's like $22,000. And so when you compare that with the Wolf Pact, you compare it with the Teach Grant, and it really, really makes the price tag of a four-year education really feasible, actually, for elementary and early childhood. So we're working on that, and we've been blessed to be able to offer that to our new students, our transfer students, and it's going to be available to all of our students so that everybody at least gets some help because it's a huge financial responsibility. One I'm just learning now, having two daughters in college, like a person just doesn't realize, but this is going to be extraordinary, and it's a huge gift that will continue, hopefully forever.
And that expansion is going live next fall?
Correct. Yep,
okay,
next
so
fall.
the students you're recruiting right now will be the
part of
first
that.
first group that will have that. That's so exciting.
Yeah.
You know, I just have to say as a plug that you know, we talk a lot about the cost of higher education and that we want students to leave school with this small amount of debt as possible. That's a big topic in higher ed. And I just want to say how important I think it is to offer that to people who will be teachers.
Yeah.
because we all know that we wish teachers got paid more. And I think if we can help them leave with less debt, it gives them just a good start in their profession. So
does.
I
It
really
does.
think it's wonderful. So kudos to you and certainly to the donor who really
Yes.
made that happen.
Absolutely.
So, I want to talk just for a moment about research and scholarship. It's a big part of being a faculty member. So tell us a little bit about how you see research or scholarly activity playing out in the school. What are maybe some of the research topics or research projects you see happen? And what's kind of the long-term benefit of that?
Absolutely. I think the best part of how research works in our school is that it's applied. I don't see a lot of research projects and papers and conversations that aren't useful to the profession or to other people, and I think that's my favorite part. I mean, I'm a practitioner. I grew up as a high school teacher and as a principal, and so I came to Northern and realized that I had this expectation of research, and I didn't know how to handle that because whatever research I did went into the classroom. And what I realized is that, yes, that's the point. You do the research, you figure out how it helps people, and then you work with your students so that they can carry it on. And I think that's what I see happening all of the time. And we've got amazing projects. I constantly am signing travel paperwork for our people to go present their research at national conferences, and that's a big deal. I mean, you put forth an abstract, and it's blind reviewed by your peers, and you're accepted, and then you get to present to these amazing people across the nation, and so that's a really big deal, and we see that a lot. Teacher motivation, principal motivation, mental health, sport performance, you name it, there is a research project happening. And the best part of it is that it's all useful to what their students are going to do. And I see a lot of pairings, especially in the master's programs, where we have the human performance lab, so there's a lot of like actual research happening that could really develop into something new and innovative, and it's useful. And it's not just something that's written and put on a shelf and it just sits there. It's for the better good or for the better purpose of our society, and it's amazing. It gives me goosebumps.
And ultimately helps the profession progress, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're always discovering new knowledge and
Yeah.
really feeds the discipline, I think, as a whole. So
Yeah.
very good. And then maybe we've already talked about this enough, but I'm going to throw it back just to make sure. Do you see new or different modalities of learning occurring, teaching and learning occurring in the future?
Yes, absolutely. When I came to college, I was just telling Renee, I get a kick, she's our GA, and so sometimes it's fun for me to say, do you know about this, or do you remember this, like a flip cell phone? And so when we walked in,
we all had
them. We have those. I was telling her that when I started, we didn't even have computers when I started college, and we had to go down in the basement to check our email. And I think of all of the changes that have happened, and I also get very excited about the prospect of all of our programs becoming so much more accessible. And all of the programs in teacher education are available somehow remote. And we've talked a lot about what does that look like. And counseling has been definitely our model. And some of their classes are async, so you can join in the evenings, but some of them require that synchronous component so that you can still be face-to-face. And I think that's really important. And some of our teacher ed faculty have been talking about that. What would that look like if we did require just to keep that sense of connection, and people want that. We thought after COVID that nobody would come to class ever again.
Right.
But it turns out they like people and they like class, and so that's exciting. But I think the sky's the limit with the modality. I think we have to be flexible, and we have to meet students where they are, and have to realize that, I mean, we're not just looking at the population of an 18-year-old coming to campus and moving in the dorm. There's so many more people that could benefit from our instruction. So we're constantly evolving. Our classrooms in Gerber are all HiFlex ready, which means we've got great cameras, great microphones, and the ability to switch back and forth. It's a massive amount of work, but our faculty are really great at it. But I think we've got apprenticeship models happening. So for our apprentices who are paras in the school, they're working and doing some on-the-job training, applying that to the classroom. So I think however we can make it work, we're willing to have a conversation, and it's just constantly changing, which is very exciting.
And I think you have a state grant, or you're part of a state grant that does the paraprofessional. Is that true?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We wrote it and kind of developed the program with Dakota State. And so Dakota State handles the elementary and special ed, and then we handle the high school. So a lot of our teachers have gone through and received tuition from the Department of Ed to get that degree and then go out and have their own classrooms.
Which is such a wonderful program as
And
well.
just to add to what Dean Schwan said about the future of the modality, especially as I think about counseling, because the majority of our students are non-traditional students. And so it's not the typical, our students all have jobs. They're running a household. They're managing so many things. And so what we offer is that opportunity to still have an education. I just had one student, it's her third child, and she just had a baby, and she was literally doing her post. She's like, oh, if you hear a baby crying, I just had my baby in the hospital. I'm like, I think if there's any time you get a day off, it would be today. But it just goes to show how the availability allows us to serve people.
Right, and how dedicated our students
they're
are
so
also.
They are. They're the best. They're the best.
That's great. I forgot to ask you a question that I really want to come back to, and because it kind of fits with the conversation around accreditation and curriculum. But how do you stay connected to your field? I mean, how do you stay connected with either teacher counselors out in the schools or perhaps clinicals?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Several ways. So I think about first thing we do, we have an advisory board. And so the advisory board is consistent of practitioners in the community, school personnel, alumni, just everybody who has a hand in the counseling. So for example, we have an annual meeting and we all get together, and it's a bridge between what they're learning in the academics and a bridge to the field. And so the advisory board gives us like feedback on our students. Like for example, one of the feedback we got in our last meeting, they're like, I find that some of the students struggle with feedback. And so of course we come back now, and this year it's all about feedback. It's like, how do you take feedback? How do you give feedback? What does feedback mean to you? What is the context and things like that? So that is one way. Another way we do it is we offer stay connected with the supervisors. I didn't mention earlier that that's a big part of our program. The supervisors from the communities that supervise our students while in their practicum and internship. So for example, over the summer, Dr. G and I did a supervisory workshop where we did different aspects of supervision and gave free counseling education for these supervisors who would normally have to pay an arm and a leg to get such a training. So things like that. Another thing, Dean Schwan just mentioned, we just came back from the ACES conference last week that was held in Philadelphia. It was almost 3,000 counselor educators in one room. It was fantastic. It was 5 days of just collaboration and networking. I was so exhausted when I come back because it's the largest, ACES is the Counselor Education and Supervision Conference, and they have it every 2 years, and this was the largest by far, and so it's one of my favorites because I really get to connect with like ACA is just for counselors or things like that. But it was fantastic. And to be able to get with other counselor educators, we were able to bring information, we were able to talk about research, and we were bringing it back into our classroom. I'm new to South Dakota, so one way for me, I will now start pursuing licensure because as a counselor educator, part of that is practicing what we're preaching. And so I've come now to South Dakota. I'm finding out it's a little different from other states. So it's a little slow for me getting into it, but I have a meeting set up with supervisors who I'm going to be talking to who are able to tell me about how it is in Aberdeen, how it is in South Dakota. Because practicing is a way for us to stay connected to the field. I'm using the examples in our classroom as I talk with students, and they love it. But now I'm using my experience from Wyoming, which was over a year ago. So hopefully by next year this time, I should be practicing here in Aberdeen. And so that's some of the ways we stay connected. It's just wonderful.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's very important because back to that relevance, the more you can stay connected to your field, the more relevant you'll be also. So that's really great. I'm actually going to ask you, I was going to ask the dean the question about this, but I thought, no, I'm going to ask it from a faculty perspective. So we all know that you have just moved back into what is a beautiful facility now. And we know facilities are a big part of offering a quality education. I mean, you need to have the right facilities to facilitate what you do as a teacher. So you've been in it now for what, about 3 months? Roughly?
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about what it's like working in this facility and how it helps you deliver a better education?
Absolutely. And it's funny because I started last year. And so I have, other than when I did my interview, I have no reference for the old building. So everybody keeps saying, oh, this is fantastic. And I'm like, then what was here?
Yeah,
right. And starting over or host at the Student Center, they were wonderful. But to be in your own space, like the building is just beautiful. I know I was teaching in other classrooms last year and running from here to there, not understanding the technology. I did a walkthrough at the start. Now one would think I'm a pro, and I'm so technology deficient. But if you see me in the classroom, I look like a pro because it's set up in such a way that it allows for easy maneuver. The first day of classes, some of my students were late coming in, and they're like, oh, Dr. Brown, I'm sorry, we were just exploring. They were so just enamored, and likewise to be able to walk into my own space, my own permanent space, and set up shop, which I couldn't do last year, and just to sit and have students or colleagues stop by, it's just been fantastic, and it makes you comfortable. And when you're comfortable, then I feel, in my opinion, then you're more relaxed in your teaching and what you're giving to your students. And so I find that it has been, to be able to have us all, last year it was just me and my colleagues. I would only see everybody else when we had a meeting or something, and then, but it allowed us to grow closer. But now I'm only going up a flight of stairs to my classroom. I can go on the second floor and see everybody else. And so it has been it's just beautiful. I don't know how else to put it. And so I feel bad for whoever was here before this year, because I'm like, then what were you sitting in? It's absolutely wonderful. So it has just enhanced my level of teaching and what I get. Even yesterday, I was having an issue in the classroom, and I had a group running, and they were able to take their computer and still continue watching while the guy fixed the computer in the classroom. And they just moved to that space with the little tables and chairs. And I'm looking through the door, and they're just there, still engaged with my online student with what is going on. And I'm like, if we were where we were last year, I'm not sure this would have been. And it was just so seamless. Nothing stopped. And we were able to do what we were supposed to do. So I hope that answered your question.
Oh, very much so. So Renee, how do you like it? Tell me about it.
I love it. So I was here with the old building, so it was definitely time for an upgrade, I'd say. Sometimes the heater would squeal when you're sitting in there like listening to a little or, one thing that I think has definitely made a big difference with student body and just everything connection-wise is the last building. It was super cut off. You had to walk down a hallway and kind of peer in to see if like the room was open. Okay, well, now I have to go into this room to see if the office is open. And now you just walk past your professors, and you walk past them and you're like, oh, hey. You're building those connections, but it's also easier to go ask the questions that you maybe didn't have time in class for, or you're confused on an assignment. I can go pop in really quick rather than kind of having to like peer in and feel a little awkward. Right. So I think it's just like accessibility-wise has definitely leveled up.
Yeah. Yep.
So.
Do you love that student lounge area?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love seeing the students out there. They walk past me, and I get to see a lot of students that I don't normally mingle with and say, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
And they walk past me, they go sit in there. I go eat my lunch out there, and sometimes I just strike up some lovely conversations. So.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Yeah. And has it been everything you hoped to be and more?
The first day when the students came back, I was sitting in my office, and I almost jumped out of my skin to hear what was going on, and I went to all of the different spaces, and there were students there, students not even in education programs, they just came to hang out. And it's alive, the building is alive, and that's exactly what we wanted. They come there on purpose, and they stay between classes, and they have their lunch, and I see students in the evening making their dinners between the counseling classes, and they're coming there with a purpose. And part of our vision was it's a small building, so we wanted to maximize every square inch. And I love that you said that, because that's what we had envisioned. If you want to practice teaching small groups, there's a space for that. If you want to take a couple of students and lay down on the carpet and do whatever you want to do, there's a space for that. And it's been extraordinary. It was a lot of work for us all, and to be separated, but we're very blessed, and it's a huge gift. Yeah,
it's beautiful. It really is a gorgeous space. Yeah, very good. Dr. Brown, I want to come back to you and just ask a futuristic question about counselor ed. What do you see down the road for changes in your profession Do you think it's going to change a lot, a little? I mean, what do you think is going to happen?
I think it's just a lot of good expansion of what we have now, especially as Dean Schwan spoke about the technology modality. Our profession really shifted when the pandemic hit. Everything moved to telehealth. And just like you said, you'd think after the pandemic, so now it is actually a thing. So telehealth, we're having to be trained in telehealth. We're having to teach our counselors about telemental health. So I only see that getting bigger and better, especially as there's a counseling compact. Like right now, if I'm licensed in South Dakota, like I'm provisionally licensed in Wyoming, I can only see clients who are in Wyoming. So what we're working on the counseling compact to allow counselors to work across states. So you can, if you're licensed in South Dakota, I should be able to see clients anywhere. So I think when that comes in 2026 with all 50 states, that's going to change how we do counseling, because we're no longer going to be limited in the services we can offer in different states. So that's definitely one way. Another way that we were reminded last week, even though with the present climate with DEI being a thing that's a bad word, it is at the core of what we do with counseling. So even as our speaker last week at the conference said to us, even if it's not front facing and you can't have the sign or you can't have certain things in your syllabus, it is who we are and it's what we do. We have to continue to do what we say we're going to do, which is serve all people, which is open that safe environment for anyone who wants to see us. And so I think regardless of what's happening now, I think that will continue, because as counselors, we're charged to continue to do that and to provide the best for everyone. And so I see that progressing as well. So just those, and just the continued collaboration among the field. Historically, counselors and psychologists and social workers, there's always been a chasm between those, but we have been working as a field to change that, and I think that will just happen naturally and continue to grow cohesively as a unit as we progress in the future.
That's good to hear. I think it's important to do that.
Very much so.
Yeah, very good. All right, I'm going to end my last questions with you, Renee, and I'm going to go back to Homecoming Queen for a minute. I know we kind of started there and we'll end there, but tell me a little bit about how you received that honor, what that weekend was like, because I did see you quite a bit that weekend. And then is there anything that's prevailed since then, or is it pretty much just a homecoming thing? So just talk to us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So honestly, it was absolutely so much fun. I feel like I got to be immersed in Northern's life. I feel like sometimes when being a double major, you student teach for 12 weeks in the fall and then 12 weeks in the spring. So I feel like I kind of got a little cut off from just like student body and Northern life. But then, and it's a little bit nerve-wracking, kind of like, well, I don't really want to jump back into it. I'm like, I don't know anybody and stuff kind of like that, But being a part of that, I don't know, just not necessarily receiving the honor, but just being a part of the whole activity. The whole week, homecoming week, was so fun. I got to be, immersed in Northern's life, the activities, the student body. I got to talk to people maybe I wouldn't have never crossed paths with, from different majors, business majors, stuff like that. So I thought that was very, very fun. And then, of course, it was an honor to actually, receive Homecoming Queen at the end of it. I felt just like super supported by my peers in the student body of Northern. And then, it was a super busy weekend. But like I said, I got to meet a lot of people that I maybe would have never met. And I'm such a people person. And so I think it was very fun to, go mingle with the 50-year club, well, back in my day at Northern, it's like, I love hearing those stories. I love seeing the pictures. From the 50-year club, this one group of gals, they sat me down and like, we're the Briscoe babes.
I know.
And I was like, all right, I am in it. I'm glad. So I just think just stories like that are something like so small, yet I'm going to keep those forever.
I know.
So I think it was just super fun.
Yeah. I thought the 50-year club was great too.
Absolutely.
But other thing, handing out candy on the parade.
Oh my
right?
gosh. I ran out of candy before we even made it to Main Street. There were so many cute kids and they just were like, oh my gosh, you're a queen. And I was like, here, do you want it? I don't know. I loved it. It was just the community, Northern, everything about it was just so fun.
Yeah, and it was an exceptionally good homecoming.
Yeah.
I mean, we had great weather, and but there were big crowds for everything.
Absolutely.
So it was a good homecoming. I'm glad you really enjoyed it. And I'm going to just ask you, if you can for a moment, speak for other Northern students too, because I know you hang out with them and you know them. What do you think Northern students want in their education, and why do you think they select Northern? So maybe just talk a little bit about our student body, if you would.
So from what I've heard, from every aspect, athletes, student body, different majors, different, graduate programs, it's really the smallness of Northern. Like I said earlier, we're small, but we're very mighty. The integrity of our programs and stuff is amazing. You're getting experience that actually makes you feel prepared for your future job. And then also just kind of that, going back to that close-knit environment, you're close with your professors, you're close with your faculty. Just small things like that, I think, kind of just go into what student body want. A lot of people think that they want to go to college and blend in, but that's not really what you really want, I'm sure. Like, you come here, that was my whole plan. I'm going to come to college, I'm going to blend in, I'm going to sit in the back of the class, I'm just going to do my work, and I'm going to stay quiet. That is absolutely the farthest thing that I'm doing now.
Right.
So I think that it's just what students want. Like, we're getting great education, you're making great friends, you're making great memories, and you're kind of just being immersed in every aspect that you could ever want from a college. So I think that's really what Northern students want and continue to seek out.
Great. Very good. Well, thank you all. You've been exceptionally wonderful. They're great responses. So I'm just going to open up to all of you and just say, what have I missed? Because I certainly don't hit it all. And is there anything else you'd like to share from your viewpoint?
Well, I don't think you have missed anything, but just to piggyback off what Renee said based on the faculty aspect. I spoke about the ACES conference. It was 2 years ago at the ACES conference that I did job talks. Before I went to that talk, I've never heard of Aberdeen or South Dakota. And they weren't even on my top 20 list, to be honest. But what I was looking for, as each job talk person they were presenting, I was looking at the cohesion between the facilitators, because I'm like, do I see myself with that team? Because that's the team you're going to be working with. Ended up in Northern Stock totally by accident. And I remember it was the only, after doing about 30 job talks, it was the one that I took a selfie of. And I remember saying to the two presenters there, I'm not sure what this is, but I want a piece of it. And then when I came for my interview, and then I met Dean Schwan and the rest of the team, I knew, I was like, oh, so it wasn't just a farce. Like, it wasn't just a show. Like, they're genuine. They are that, it was almost too good to be true. It's like, do I wait for the other shoe to drop? And I remember when I left my interview, and that sign at the airport says, goodbye, Aberdeen, or something. Yeah. And I remember looking back and thinking, I could work here. I could work here. And so to come and to have like a leader like Dean Schwan, who is exactly who I saw at the interview and before. It just speaks to, from a faculty perspective, it's the same thing I'm experienced. Like, this intimacy and this, it's not a farce. It really is who they say they are. And it has made my time here just absolutely wonderful.
Good.
So I just wanted to add that.
Oh, that's great.
I didn't know you were going to talk like that.
But it's true.
It
It's
is.
true.
We,
And to go back to ACES this year, it was a lot of reflection, because it was 2 years ago. It's like, and look where I am now, based on, just by chance, one would say.
Right.
Yeah.
But then to 2 years later, to be able to look back and say, it was, because you're looking for jobs. It's a hard decision.
It is.
I gave up my number one school for Northern, and I'm like, I don't regret that choice. And so,
That's awesome.
We are a family.
yeah, it is. It is.
You do have a very, very,
Yes.
a very close-knit culture in your school, for sure.
Yes.
I can say, I sense it all the
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
We show up for each other, and I think I've had other jobs in my life, and I've never been somewhere where we all truly show up, and we know our kids' kids, and we celebrate the good things, and when we're there for each other when times are really hard, and people are very real, and it's exceptional. It's not like any environment I've ever been part of before.
That's really great. Anything else from anyone? All right. Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
inviting us.
Thank you
Yes,
for
thanks
being
for
here
having
today.
us.
Thank you for your just great responses and openness to talk about the school and what you do. And I wish you all the very best. We're in the middle of the semester, so keep going.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
End is
you.
in sight. Thank you.